Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us today on TDC Lounge, a show about creative people doing creative things in the world of performing arts. I'm your host, Tyson Garner. We're so excited about this next episode. Here with us today, we have Miss Tracy Halas, one of my favorite people in the whole world. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tyson.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So, I think you are a very big deal. And I think there's a lot of people who are walking around this world and dancing in this world and think you are a very big deal. But our audience may not know who you are and what you do. So could you kind of give us your official title?
Sure. Officially, I am a choreographer for the Walt Disney Company. And I am a staff choreographer, which means that I am one of their staff choreographers creating shows and parades, whatever they need for entertainment.
That's awesome. So I've worked for you before, and for me, I feel like if you want to work at Disney, you kind of need to be your friend. Meaning like you kind of have the antidote for getting into the park as a dancer. As a director, what are you looking for? Like we have a lot of like fans out there who really want to get into the performing arts and get into dancing, and it seems like Disney's like a great pathway into the performing. When you sit down at an audition table for a Disney, like a parade, for instance, what is it that you as Disney, what are you guys looking for?
Well, first of all, thank you. That's a nice compliment.
Thank you.
But I think it kind of depends on the show or what the genre is that we are casting for. Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of different things that come into play when we're either casting a show or looking for dancers, whether it's going to be a long-running show, what style it is, or if it's just a one-off event, whether they have to sing and dance. Sometimes we have sing, dance, act, all three. So I'm really looking for somebody who is trained technically, if it's a strong dance show.
Ding, ding, ding. Did everybody hear that?
And because sometimes our shows run, like our Aladdin show that we just closed, ran for 13 years. So I'm looking for somebody that is not only trained because that's what the job requires, but I'm looking for somebody that's trained because I know they're going to be strong and they're going to be able to sustain that kind of a work schedule of performing and lasting in a show that they may be in for all of those years.
That seems like it's kind of common, like a common thing that you should kind of know. But like, I've heard like young dancers and even older dancers say, "Oh, they didn't like me," or "Oh, there's politics," or whatever. And I'm sure there's some sort of politics, but ultimately, you're looking for somebody who can do the job, right?
Yes, yeah. I think there's always politics, but I'm looking for somebody that is going to present them their best self. Somebody that looks like they're enjoying what they're doing, as well as technically strong, and someone that's happy and that has great sort of energy that I want to come and work for me or work with.
That's fair. That's totally fair. I was in a group called Young Americans, and my mentor, Bill Brawley, he used to say, like when he was casting a show, he kind of would cast it as the person was walking in the door. Like he could tell, like, oh, I want that person. And like if they could do the work, then it was even better. But like he kind of knew what was, does that go with
Yeah,
for
definitely.
you as well?
I watch how somebody learns. I watch how they present themselves when they walk in the room, if they're kind to other people, if they're considerate. I'm watching as a whole from the minute they walk in the door. So it's not just the steps.
Why is that?
Because that's who I have to work with.
That's
that's
fair.
who I am going to be creating a show with, because I don't just consider myself, the creative part of the show. They're also in that process
Totally.
with us. So I want somebody that's going to be positive and nice to have in a creative environment.
Yeah.
And they're also working with other people that they may not know. Everybody comes together as one sort of group after you've cast a show. So I want to make sure that those people are going to enjoy each other as well. So,
because I feel like especially when I teach young kids and maybe their parent or somebody will come to me and say, "Hey, what are they looking for?" And they're all nervous or whatever. And I remember, Marcus Choi. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he told me, a friend of his told him, the person who's watching you or judging you in the audition wants you to do well. Like they're hoping you're the guy or the girl to do well.
Yeah.
So it kind of takes the pressure off. But for me, I felt like once I started working, that you think, oh, I got the job. Like you got through the audition, but really the work happens when you go to work though, right?
Right. Yeah, that's what I always say. It's, when you get in a show, two things about it. It's going to open and that it's going to close. The part you don't know is everything that sort of happens in the middle. And that's the part that you really have to step up and bring your best self, and you have to do the work. It's really, and it's constant. Every day you go to work there, you're not just clocking in. You have to come in and bring your best self every day. So
have you, for the amount of time that you've been working at Disney, is your like radar pretty good? Like you can kind of pick like, oh, this person's not going to be fun to work with or not easy to work with. Are you getting pretty good at that?
Yeah, I think I have a pretty good judge of character on people right away. And I can tell from how somebody learns and the effort they're putting into that, kind of what type of a dancer they are and what kind of a worker they are just by the audition itself. So yeah, my track record's pretty good with that.
So I remember doing rehearsals with you, or being in rehearsals with you, and your brain is like a computer. Like you can remember everything. Was it always like that?
I was always cast as the swing in shows that I did, and I'm I think most dancers are very visual, and I'm a very visual person.
So maybe some of the young kids who don't know what a swing is, what could you explain what a swing is?
The swing performer is the person that's cast in the show to cover multiple roles in the show. So you could learn, 2, 3, sometimes up to 10, maybe even more roles depending on the show. And you're the one that's got to jump in and probably get the least amount of rehearsals.
Stressful.
So you got to be on your game.
Yeah. So is that what kind of worked your muscle? Like
I think so. I think that. And then growing up, I always just picked up choreography really easily. So it was just something that I think naturally I had that to begin with. So it kind of lended itself to.
Does that kind of make you a little partial to people who pick up choreography quicker, just because your mind thinks like that?
You know what? I've never thought about that, but I don't think so, because I think every person contributes something in their own way. If I was hiring a swing, I would definitely look for that, but that's not something that
everybody needs to have.
I don't think and that's not everybody's strength. So I think there are different places that people fit. So
now when you work from at like a choreographer standpoint, and now you're kind of moving into the director's thing, so you're kind of like creating the shows. Is there somebody that you like to work with that you feel comfortable with now that you're starting to create things, or when you do your stage shows or whatever it is that you're doing there?
If I'm working as a director, I will always have a choreographer. I think that the two combined are really how you create a successful show.
Totally.
If there's singers, then the musical director also, because everyone contributes their piece that the other person may not be thinking of. And so I think it's really important to have those three creative bodies in the mix.
And when you're as in a director's position, what kind of choreographer or assistant choreography are you looking for?
Well, it depends on the project. Yeah. But I'm looking for somebody that is flexible, that doesn't just want their idea to be brought out. I think that it needs to be somebody that can say, oh yeah, maybe that's not great, let's go down this route, or that wants to explore things and not just do it their way.
Right. Because I feel like when I've worked with people in the past, the directors that are open or have worked as a choreographer before, like yourself, understand the process better than somebody who's never danced before, and they're just kind of putting a show together and they don't know what it takes to put into it. So you've done both sides. What side do you enjoy most?
I definitely enjoy choreographing more, and I think it's just because that's where my comfort level is. I think I'm more challenged as a director because it's not how I started.
Fair enough.
Or where I saw myself. I've always sort of been the dancer and moved into the choreographer. I enjoy directing because it's kind of it speaks to a different part of your creativity.
Totally.
So I enjoy it, but I'm just more comfortable with the dance,
at home,
and I still love to dance. So it kind of fulfills that part of myself also.
That's right. That's great. So I feel like I want to talk to you about this only because it's such a big deal, and So you, like you mentioned earlier, the Aladdin show went on for how long?
13 years.
13 years.
Yeah.
Wow, I can't even believe that.
Yeah.
And then you started out at what capacity in the Aladdin show?
I started as an assistant choreographer.
Mm-hmm.
Lynn Taylor Corbett was the choreographer coming from New York, and she choreographed Footloose and the musical Swing, and then Francesca Zambella was the director for the show. So I sort of teamed up with them in New York and worked with them there.
Did you go to New York and work
Yeah.
with them there? That's awesome. How
Yeah.
long were you there for?
We were there for probably 2 weeks within that process, and we also did some preliminary auditions
Oh, okay.
while we were there in New
Okay.
York.
Did you were you kind of like a liaison with Disney and them, or were you just to kind of make sure that
Yes.
okay, that makes sense.
exactly.
That makes sense. That makes
Yep.
sense.
Yeah, I kind of was the Disney go-to person for them, because Disney does have it's a different world. It's still the creative and the entertainment, but there are some parameters that we have that don't, Broadway, they don't do 4 shows a day or 5
Right.
shows a day.
That's fair.
And they don't have multiple casts, 100 cast members that are part of a show. So that is something that I helped sort of
Keep in
be the
mind.
liaison
Yeah,
between
yeah.
those.
But also to protect the brand, though, too.
Yeah.
The brand is
Oh,
such
yeah,
a
definitely.
staple in the world, for God's sakes. You know what I mean? So,
Yep.
like, I could tell that. So it's
Yeah.
like you've been entrusted with a very important job. Sounds like, you know what I mean? Especially 13 years ago. So then, what did you end up with? Like, what was your title once you ended up?
Well, at the end, I was still the choreographer and kind of the assistant director. There was several different directors that came in through those years.
Oh, I didn't know that.
As maintenance directors.
Just to try to spruce up the show or whatever.
Yeah, so they
Okay.
would, because there were actors and, we had musical director for the singers. So they came in to sort of keep eyes on that piece of it. And then I oversaw the show as a whole and from the choreography and the staging aspect of it. So at the end, that's kind of what my role was.
So, not to put you on the spot, but
But you are.
Yeah. But from my knowledge of you and then hearing what you're talking about now, I feel like you're like an invaluable asset to Disney, like where you can wear multiple hats. Does that make sense? So do you feel like, not that you deserve it or anything, but like as a director, that's really where you should be, because you've worn all the hats and you see it on a daily basis and you keep it maintained. Is that a fair statement? Like, you know what I mean?
Well, I consider the position that I have at Disney. I'm really honored to have that position.
I think it's great. I think they have the right person, to be quite honest.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
So I really try to keep myself on my best game. I apply to myself what I ask of dancers or actors or people that I'm working with. So I really try to continue to bring that, because I think it's really an honor to be where I am.
Totally.
I think I work with so many different directors that I really respect. So it's nice to be thought of as a director or be able to do work in that capacity. And I do get to do that on certain events and for certain shows and things.
That's awesome.
But I think that the people that I work with, I see what they bring in a different capacity, other than, some that aren't choreographers, some that do have choreography, dance backgrounds. So I see their value as well. So
That's
I think
fair.
it really, we have a great group of people that bring all different aspects, which is what makes it successful, is
And
having
it's been
everybody
success for a
with-
long time, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, totally.
yeah.
Totally. Yeah, because, in preparing for the show today, I talked to people that I have done shows with before and maybe still do shows there, or have worked with you in special events and stuff. And the kind of the consensus through all of it, through everybody, was that they would jump off a roof for you, just because what you said, like, you don't ask anything of them that you don't do yourself, and that in a rehearsal process you're just as sweaty as they are, and in you're in the trenches just like them. I feel like how can I say this? I feel like young dancers who are coming up that would audition for you and would audition for Disney need to know that if they were to have get you to hire them, that you as a director, it's a luxury, and that they have to kind of work just as hard, if not harder than you, to sustain or to be able to be asked back. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, and I think what you just made me think of, just saying that, is that I think the difference that I see in dancers today is the commitment level. When you're hired for a job, we have a very specific, these are the rehearsal times, these are what's set, and it's laid out to you when you're offered a position. And a lot of times I get, I got the job, great, committed, but then you get into it and it's, I can't work this day, and I'm going to need this time off, and I'm going to, so you see where the commitment starts to falter. And I see that more now than I used to see.
Well, then that's a good question. Because people who are kind of in a leadership position that I've spoken to kind of have that same sentiment. But on the other hand, what do you see that's better? Like the level of the kids that are coming in now. Is there something that they're doing definitely better?
I think what I see that's better now is there's a confidence with younger dancers that seems like it gives them a little bit more of an edge.
Fair enough.
Than what I used to recall. It seemed like there was more fear. People were trained, they were technical, they were good dancers, but there was this fear that I don't see a lot of times in younger dancers now.
Gotcha.
Maybe they're just hiding it.
Yeah, probably.
Really well.
Yeah.
Or putting on a great,
show
face.
Yeah.
But I do see that there's a confidence level, and maybe it's the style of dancing now. There's a little bit more freedom.
Yes.
And it's not, to be who they are kind of in the dancing that they're doing.
I feel like now when I choreograph for somebody, as opposed to when I used to choreograph for them before, is I'll sit down and ask them questions, because I feel like with the age of the internet and smartphones and stuff, they just pick up energy so much faster, and they're brilliant in some ways, where I'm like, you're 12 or 13 and I can't believe you know this and can put these two things together and really figure it out. Yeah. And you're right, there is really no fear. And well, as a choreographer, it's fun to work with them, but you're right. There's a level of I'm busy, so you got me for this time, but then I got to get out of here. So I think you're totally right on that front. So in terms of the Aladdin show, like what was I'm sure it was kind of sad because there was a lot of people who were there for a long time, but for you, what was your kind of mindset once it started to slow down and then ultimately it closed?
I think with a show that runs for 13 years and, people are there for 8 hours a day, it really is like a full-time job. Whereas, they're not showing up at call time at 7:30 at night for their, 8 o'clock
Broadway show. Right.
That I think it really does become a family. And that's probably the one word that everyone would tell you is that it became a family.
Totally.
So the show became really important to me to cast people that could become part of that family without, the family drama. So the people is the part that's the hardest to let go of. And I think that's true with any show. But I think that's the part that's the most difficult for everybody after 13 years is not being with those people, having
every
that
day,
same connection, and that bond, So I think that's the hardest part.
I think when I moved to New York to do Aida, I truly missed that, because coming from Animazement, working with you and being there that whole summer, and then moving to Steps and Times, like knowing that so-and-so is in your cast and you see them 3 days a week or 4 days a week and you're there 8 hours, that you're right. You go to each other's houses, there's parties, there's different things that you do together that you don't realize. And when you're in a Broadway show, it literally is, like you said, you get there at 7:30, you put your bag down, you put your makeup on, and you get on stage, you do it, and then everyone's like, hey, good night, and they leave, and you're just like, wow. Especially for me coming from California and moving to New York, there was nobody. There was really nobody. So I really felt like when I was talking to producer Matt, like about like, what should we do? I really want to show our kids who watch this, because I think you're, like I said, a really big deal, but like the being in a show at Disney is more than just, oh, guess what, Mom, I got a show. You're right. It becomes a family, and you have friends that last you forever, and that you're still friends 20 something years later. We won't talk about that.
Yeah. Well, I think Disney, anyone that gets involved in a show with Disney, they're provided a foundation, a work ethic that you don't get if you're just going from show to show to show. And I think that really sets up great, successful dancers, singers, actors, however you start there, that it sets that up for their life, for their
Well, just
careers.
think about our animazement cast. Myself, Eden Espinoza, Marcus Choi, Thomasina. Like, there's so many that left and went from my Disneyland to Broadway. And I'm sure I'm missing a bunch more names, but just like the people who are involved, it is a good base. It is a good learning tool. Because essentially, I didn't really go to college, so that was my college. That and Young Americans, that was my college. So, do you see? Is it still that way? Is it still have that kind of thing? That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's what I love, because it's still, I get the best of all worlds, because I'm really sometimes hiring dancers that are just turned 18. So I'm still continuing their learning and still teaching them sort of their craft as they learn and are put into these shows, and learning how to show up every day and work 8 hours, and monitor yourself, self-monitoring how you warm up and how you stay conditioned to
that's
do
crazy.
5
Like,
shows
you're
a
like
day.
mothering
And
somebody.
it's-
That's crazy.
And
That's awesome.
It's very it fulfills sort of a nurturing part of me that I love. So it's great. But
do you find they accept it? I think so. I think I would. I mean, I remember when we got into the show, and I remember you being so thoughtful of everyone's bodies, and thoughtful of their time and their level of, oh my God, we've been here 12 hours. Like, but we still got the work done. It didn't seem like it was like a drudgery to get that work done. So I think that was really cool. So what do you think is up next for you now that Aladdin's closed and you're kind of moving forward?
Well, I have 3 other shows that are going right now. So Mickey and the Magical Map is running, and that's one that I am the show director for. So I get to work in a little bit different capacity.
That's awesome.
And then Paint the Night Parade I just choreographed and just opened in May. So that one we're constantly rehearsing and keeping that one going. And then Red Car Newsboys is another show. So there's a lot of
Is that one in
things.
California Adventure?
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Red Car Newsboys. Trolley
So
show.
for all of our viewers who are out there, like, what would be your advice saying, okay, you're graduating high school next year, you're moving to California because you want to be in the industry, but you see this audition for Disney. What would be your advice for them coming in to see you or whatever show director is there?
I would say to come in prepared.
And what would that entail?
I think it depends on what you're doing, but come in with, be show ready.
Gotcha.
Don't come in your sweats with your flannel around your waist, and show us that it's important to you that you look good and that you're presenting your best
I feel like
self.
we need to talk about that for a second. So you as a director who probably casts a lot of people, and let's just get it straight. Like, if you get into a show at Disney, your life is going to change. You're going to meet a lot of people. You're going to meet a lot of people who could probably give you a job later on.
Yep.
And having, a Disney union show on your resume is pretty good. Like, that's kind of a good thing. So you're saying that if you aren't show ready when you walk in, it tells you that they don't care about, this isn't important to them?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
If you're showing up, hair's messy, you haven't sort of fixed yourself up at least to present yourself well, then I feel like you kind of don't care about what happens that day at that audition. And we just had parade auditions this past weekend, which is why that first came to mind.
Gotcha.
Because it feels sometimes that people see, audition's happening there, let's just go in and see if we can
Get
do
a job.
this.
Yeah.
Rather than somebody that's serious about it. I want to know that you're serious, that you want to work, that the job is important, because we are looking for people. We need people, but we want people that are really want to have the job. So it's important to present yourself well. Nowadays, you should have something to sing. Even if you don't sing, you should one song, get a song, something that you know, and just be prepared to do it.
Well, we should reiterate that. Like, how often maybe there's 5 girls that are equally as good, and you might even be the better of the 5, but this girl is actually prepared with 16 bars. does it go to that girl that is prepared and ready to sing?
Yeah, she's got the advantage. The person that's prepared and ready to do it is the one that we're going to look at more seriously.
So what would you say to a girl dancer who's afraid to sing?
That find somebody that you can work with, whether it's, a professional person that you have to pay, maybe a friend that sings, even just anybody, because the more you do it, the easier it gets to do. So find somebody that you can practice singing in front of, or look to your mentors, the people that you study with, and ask, how can I find a song if you don't know how to start? Just
and literally 16 bars, right?
Yep,
like
that's all you
that's
need.
4/8 counts, everybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? 16 bars.
And also sometimes, like the Aladdin show for ensemble, a lot of them weren't on mics, but we still wanted to know that they could sing to be confidently presenting themselves in a show. We didn't care if they were on tune, off pitch, whatever it was. We just wanted to see that they weren't afraid to do it so that they could present themselves in the show. So sometimes it's not about your voice. It's about how you're presenting yourself while you do it.
And do you going back to the whole audition thing, do you kind of watch people on the perimeter?
Always. I watch them from the second they walk in the door, how they're interacting, how they're presenting themselves. Yeah, definitely.
Is there a couple telltale signs that you're like, that's not going to work out?
There probably
I don't want to give your secrets there anyway.
Right? There probably are, and when I see them, I know it.
You know
but
it,
I can't,
okay.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
It's kind of an
it's a
energy
physicality.
from the person, yes, a physicality, and just how they're presenting themselves. Yeah. I think a smile goes a long way.
Yes.
Just a smile and just trying to relax.
Yeah.
I think,
I don't know if you know Mark Meismer. Do you know Mark Meismer? I heard him say in one of his classes that the most beautiful thing a girl could wear is a smile.
Yes.
And I feel like you're right.
Agreed.
That hair down and a flannel doesn't go a long way.
No.
So yeah, that definitely makes sense.
Yeah.
So after, let's say, okay, great, yay, you won. You got an audition, you got the job, you call your grandma, it's all great. So what would you say to somebody as they're moving into the rehearsal process?
Again, bring your best self, bring your smile, and even if you're not feeling like smiling that day, I know some people say fake it till you make it, but until you're, you got to come ready and willing to do the work. That's what we all study for. That's the goal, is to get into the show, become professional, and it continues once you're in the show. It's not just getting the job.
Right.
You've got to keep working every day and work hard. The people that I continue to hire and want to work with are the ones that take it upon themselves to know their stuff. They don't wait until rehearsal the next day to review it.
Right.
Or to, if they don't know something, they don't wait until then to ask for help or something, that they stay on top of it and they know what they're doing when they come to rehearsal.
Right. Right. I remember as a young dancer, especially the guys, like all of us, we really, I never realized how much, 20 minutes at home would help.
Yes.
And I didn't really take that advice until I got older. But like now that I'm a choreographer, I really see that it takes a lot of time to go back and go, hey, we just went for an hour about this and now we're doing another 20 minutes to refresh your memory. That's a lot of wasted time. So that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
So now that you got through the audition and now let's say you're in a show at Disney and it's the day-to-day kind of grind, if you will, what would be some pointers for somebody that once you're in the show and it's up and running, what would be your kind of
I think
words of wisdom?
One of the hard things being a performer in a show that's long running, something that you would probably experience at Disney if you get into a show, is that you have to make the show fresh every time. There's no warm-up show. So show 1 that happens at 11 o'clock needs to be as great as show 5, in the afternoon. So really they have to be self-motivators and continue to bring the show just like they did opening day every time, because the guests are different. They're getting, you're getting new guests, same show. So you have to be able to make it fresh and keep it exciting. And that's something that people struggle with. People that don't last, long time at Disneyland, I think that's what takes them down sometimes is.
Do you think there's a certain type of person that would be in a show, like a long running show?
I don't know if there's a certain type of person, but I think that loving what you do and really wanting to be successful and serious about it, that's the person that's going to succeed.
It's kind of, there's a maturity, even if you're 18, there's a maturity that needs to be there.
Yeah. If you like to just go to class, but you're not really sure, if I really want to work, but I like to take class and, I look good doing this, and, that's probably not the person that's going to succeed for long term. They'll probably get jobs, but they're not going to be,
long running jobs. Well, that makes sense. That's the one thing that I felt Disney was such a training ground for people, is that you might audition, you might not, but that your rent and your car payment and your life was paid for, and you're doing what you love. Like, you're actually performing, and you're a professional performer.
Yeah, you have to be appreciative of what you're doing, appreciate and grateful for that opportunity, not conceited about it.
Totally.
I guess,
totally.
So there has to be some gratitude in there that makes you want to show up the next day.
I remember Code told me that one, because he was the performance, or the dance captain when I was in AIDA, and I was a swing at the time, and I was so overwhelmed just from moving to New York, for that matter, but then having to learn multiple parts, and I was scattered. And I remember him telling me, like, this is a gift. You've been given a gift, so treat it as such. And I'll never forget it. It was in a dance room in New York overlooking 42nd Street. I'll never forget it. And I was on the phone trying to do stuff and was doing too many things. And he's like, hey, you need to focus right here, and you need to treat this, what you've worked your whole life for, and now you have it as a gift. And I feel like, this is probably what we have wanted to do here, is to talk to young performers and say, hey, this is really a gift that you've been given, but also there's so many options that are out there if you just kind of focus and really go after your passion.
Yeah, definitely.
So what do you teach your daughter? Like, when you work with Justine, what's her path? Like, what do you tell her?
I try to instill sort of what I talked about with a commitment. When you commit to something, then give it 100%. You may not like, sometimes you get in a show and you don't particularly like the choreographer or like the director or like how somebody works or the people, but that doesn't mean that you get to change who you are.
Right.
So you still stay committed to whatever the work is, working hard. And if you want something, you can't say, I want to do that, without working towards that goal.
Yes.
If I want to get in this show and there's singers, I have to know how to sing. So I better figure out how to do that, or, condition my body to whatever I need to do. So
I feel like that's the kind of a normal thing right now, because information is so accessible on your laptop or whatever, that you say, oh, there's this audition, I'd be great for that. But you're like, well, you haven't been in class in 6 months, or you don't even have a song. Like, what do you? So I feel like this platform, this podcast, is really for us to say, yeah, there are these things and you can do it, but there's also some stuff that you got to do to get to those things. So I really, really, really appreciate having you on today. It was awesome. Like I said, you're one of my favorite people. So thanks to everybody for joining us today. I want to thank Tracy Halas for stopping by. I want to thanks, as always, to Matt and Chris. And remember to subscribe on YouTube at Teen Dance Challenge, and to catch all our new episodes of TDC Lounge. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram at Teen Dance Challenge, and Twitter at teen_chow. And stay tuned for more information on how you can be on Season 2 Teen Dance Challenge. I'm your host, Tyson Garner. Thanks for watching.